Alright, so we're finally in a position to make our Guess the Celebrity app. Just a quick recap of what we're trying to do. We're going to use the code of posh24.com/celebrities to get the photos and names of the top 100 celebs. And then we're going to store those within our app and display them to the user and require the user to guess which celebrity is appearing in a random picture. So I can show you exactly what we're going to make. This is it in action. So this one I think I actually recognize. I think that's Tina Fey. So I'm going to click on there, and with any luck, it'll tell me correct. Fantastic. And then go on to the next one. Is that Zac Efron possibly? Correct, it is. Oh, this one I've no idea. Let's go for Alice. Correct again. Oh, very good. Now I do actually know this one, but let's say that it's Ryan Adams just so that we can see what happens when we get it wrong. There we go. So if you get it wrong, it tells you it's the next one. So all it does is just go round and round. I haven't got any score counting or anything like that because we did all that stuff in the Brain Trainer app. So you can add that yourself if you want, but this is really the basic functionality that we need. And there's nothing here that we haven't done in some ways before. So definitely do your best to do this completely on your own. But of course, as always, you're very welcome to follow along and see how I created this one myself. Let's have a final guess. Steve-O? No, Jensen Button. Unfortunate. Okay. Best of luck then. Hope it goes well. Alright, I hope you managed that. I'm going to start, of course, by creating a new project, which I'll call Guess the Celebrity. Usual settings. Here we go. Okay, so I'll start with the layout of the app, and it's pretty straightforward. We want the image view at the top and then 4 buttons underneath for the user to choose who they think that celebrity is. So I'm going to use a grid layout, just like we did before. And then I'm going to start by bringing my image view into the grid layout. There we go. I'm going to change the width to fill parent. And then just like we did before, I'm going to go over to text view and then set the column to be 0 and the row to be 0. And crucially, the layout gravity to be fill. So now if we pop back, you can see that that image view now spreads around the whole of the grid view. So let's see what happens when we bring in our buttons. So at the moment, the button is off to the right, which we don't want, obviously. We want it underneath. So all we need to do is set the row and column correctly. So the row now is going to be 1 and the column is still going to be 0. In fact, we only have one column here, so they're all going to have a column of 0. So now we should see that the button is below the image view, which is just what we want. We do want, however, to change the width of the button to make it full screen. So we'll change the width to fill parent. And while I'm here, I'll change the on click to celeb chosen. And one more change that I'll make is I will add a tag so that we can tell which button has been tapped. There we go. So just as before, so we'll call this one tag 0. And then, whoops, let's move that back up there. We'll add the rest of our buttons. And the only changes that we need to make are to change the tag and the row and the ID. So just increment each of those for each button. And tag 3. Okay, there we go. So obviously our image is blank at the moment. And one thing actually, I'm going to set the text to nothing because I don't want it to say new button while it's waiting for the initial download of content. There we go. All right. So now over to main activity. And our first challenge is, of course, to download the content of the posh24.com/celebrities website. So the code is going to be pretty much exactly the same as what we had before. So let's go through it nice and quickly. So we'll create our public class. I'll keep the names the same as well. Download task, and it extends async task. We're going to send a string to it. We've got nothing to do while it's downloading, while it's happening, and we're going to expect a string back. Then we're going to get Android Studio to implement the doInBackground method for us. There it is. Let's change the string to URLs, get rid of the return null. In fact, we may just keep that just in case we need it. Okay, and then as before, we'll create our result string, which is initially empty. We'll have an initially empty URL variable, and we'll create an HTTP URL connection called URL connection, which will initially be null. All right, then we're going to try, first of all, to create a URL from the URL that was passed to the doInBackground method, which is URLs 0. And because we don't like errors hanging around as we're working, we'll create a catch for exception E, a general exception, and we'll just print the stack trace to show us what the error is. Okay, then we're going to activate URL connection by taking URL and opening the connection to it. And we do need to cast that to a type of HTTP URL connection. Then we create our input stream. I'll call it in again, which is going to be URL connection dot get input stream, and then input stream reader. Again, I'll call it reader. Is going to be our new input stream reader created based on our input stream in. Then we get our data integer called data, which is equal to reader dot read. So we're starting to read the input stream reader, and then we loop through as long as data is not equal to -1, and as long as that's the case, we'll have a char called current, which is going to be equal to data cast as a char. I said it right, but wrote it wrong. Data cast as a char. There we go. Then we append char to our result. And we carry on the process. And once that's all done, we'll return result. There we go. And then null will be returned if result is not returned. So if this fails, so we'll leave that there. Now we want to run that on create. So download task. We'll call it task again, is equal to new download task. We'll create a result string, which is initially null. And then we'll set result equal to, and we'll take our task and we'll execute it using our URL, which is http://www.posh24.com/celebrities. And then we want to get the result of that, so we use .get. Okay, because that's running on the other thread, we need to surround it with try and catch, just to catch all of the possible errors. And then, as before, I'm just going to log that. Just like that. There we go. So quite a lot of code, but hopefully it all makes sense. And it was hopefully a little bit quicker to type the second or third time round. Finally, we need to add our line to the manifest. So that's uses permission, and the permission that we need, same one that we usually go for. Android.permission.internet. And just before we run that, you may have noticed that I was appending result to itself there. So that really wouldn't have given us much data at all. Sorry about that. Let's give that a go now. We should find, of course, that it just returns the contents of posh24.com/celebrities and prints them to the logs. And there we go. You can see that it's loaded up fine, and there is the content that we're looking for. Fabulous. So now we need to process that content and get the precise information that we need. That shouldn't be too difficult, given that we've done most of the hard work already over here in browxy. So that extracts the information that we need. Now, if we take a look at the code and search for what we were searching for before, which was src equals and then the double quotes, we can select that and then use Command F or Control F to search for it in the page. You can see it does indeed give us everything that we want. Unfortunately, it also gives us a few things that we don't want as well, like these JavaScript links. But if we updated our code to include the image tag, img, then that doesn't give us anything that we don't want, except maybe at the end. Let's go and have a look and see if there are any other images at the end. And indeed, yes, there are. There are some images that we don't want because they're to do with other articles on the other end of the page. So if we can find a way to split the page at, say, this point, again, let's just check and make sure that there's only one of those. Yeah, so if we split the page at this point and then search for the image srcs at the part of the page before that point, then that should give us everything that we need. And crucially, nothing that we don't need. So let's try that. Back to Android Studio. So now here is where we want to process result. So I saved that bit of code in the clipboard there. So let's remind ourselves how we do our split by looking at the code that we had here. So I'm just going to copy that straight in to Android Studio. And let's change it to split result. And then this is going to be result dot split, but instead of splitting it by the letter S, we're going to split it with div class equals and then sidebar container. And you can see it's actually very helpfully put the backslashes in for us, so we don't need to do that ourselves. Fantastic. So now we just need to do the loop through part. And again, we can get the code from that from browxy. Let's select both parts. No point doing work that we've already done again. Let's add in pattern and matcher. And then we just need to change HTML for split result. And in fact, sorry, we want split result 0 because we want the first part of that array, which will be the part before the sidebar container. So that will be the part containing all the celebrities, but not the part containing the latest news. Excellent. So now that should print that lot to the logs. So let's get rid of our log there because we no longer need it, and run that again and see if that works. It's worth pointing out here that this is not a great way to get your data if you want your app to be reliable, because we obviously don't control posh24.com. We hope that they will update this and that will keep our app up to date with the latest celebrities, but if they changed the code of this page, then our app would then break. So it's not a great way to make a reliable app. However, it could be good for downloading some information to then store in your app later on, if you're not relying on this all the time. We'll see a much better way to get data from the web using JSON and APIs in the next video. But this is a great introduction to getting web content and using it. And here we go. You can see there are all our celebrity names, and there are all our image URLs. Fantastic. Okay. Let's now then create a couple of array lists to store those. So I'll create them globally because we're going to need access to them all over the place. So we'll have an array list of strings, which is going to be a new array list of strings. And let's call it celeb URLs. And then very similarly, we'll create one called celeb names. And then instead of printing these to the logs every time, we'll take that first one, remember, finds the URLs. So celeb URLs dot add, and then m.group 1. And then similarly, celeb names dot add m.group1. Alright, so now we have two array lists, one of which contains all the URLs for the images for our celebrities, and the other one contains all the names. So what we want to do next is pick a number at random, get that image URL, download the image, and then display it for the user. So let's do that down in onCreate. Where are we? Here. So after we've got our celeb URLs and our celeb names, let's create a random, which we'll call random, and it's going to be a new random. Then we'll have an integer called chosen celeb, which again is likely to need access from a number of places. So I'll define it up here, and I'll give it an initial value of 0 just so that we've got something to work with. And then we can take chosen celeb is going to be equal to random, and then we want to create a new integer which has got to be between 0 and the size, or 1 less than the size of the array list. So celeb URLs dot size. There we go. So remember, random.nextInt gives you a random number between 0 and 1 less than the number that you put in here, which is exactly what we want, because 1 less than that is going to be the highest value. So now the small matter of downloading the image. So as I'm sure you've anticipated, this is going to involve a second public class extending async task. So let's bundle on through. So public class, again, image downloader, which extends async task. Remember, we're going to send it a string, which will be the URL. We don't need anything to happen while it's working, and then it's going to return a bitmap. We'll use Android Studio to implement the doInBackground method. There it is. And then, as before, we'll change params to URLs. And then we'll create a URL called URL, which is going to be a new URL from URLs 0. And we'll let it surround that with try and catch. And then we'll create a new HTTP URL connection, which we'll call connection, which we'll need to cast to HTTP URL connection, but we'll get it from URL.openConnection. And then once again, we'll add the IO exception catch for URL open connection. Then we'll connect. Then we'll create our input stream, which we'll call input stream, which we get from connection.getInputStream. Then we'll create our bitmap called myBitmap, which we get from bitmapfactory.decodeStream. And the stream, of course, is input stream. Finally, we'll return my bitmap. There we go, and we've already got the return null there, just in case something goes wrong. Okay, so now we've got our two classes that we need. So let's here create a new image downloader. I'll call it image task, just to differentiate it from the task that we created up here. And that's a new image downloader. And we'll also create a bitmap, which I'll call celeb image. Then we'll let celeb image equal image task dot execute, and we want to send a URL. The URL, of course, is the celeb urls dot get, and then the one that we want is, of course, chosen celeb, and we want to get the result of that, so we use .get. Then finally we want to update our image, so let's again create a variable up here called, well, of a type image view, and we've only got the one, so we'll just call it image view. And then just at the beginning of onCreate, let's find it. So image view is equal to, and then we'll cast it as an image view and get it from find view by ID, r.id dot image view. And finally then we want to update image view with set image bitmap, and that is celeb image. Whew. A lot of work, but with any luck that will result in a random image being chosen and then displayed to the user. The next step, of course, is to pick the matching name and then 3 other random names and display those in the buttons. And there we go. There's our celebrity. I must confess to not knowing which celebrity that is. Feel free to berate me in the comments if necessary. Right, but we now have our celebrity, so let's get his or her name and a bunch of others appearing in those buttons. So we can do this in a similar way that we did it with the Brain Trainer app, which required a few variables here. So first we had a location of correct answer, which was an integer between 0 and 3, which showed us which button contained the correct answer. And then we'll have an array of integers. Oops. Called answers. We used an array list last time, but we could just as well use an array because we know there's always going to be 4 of them. So this is going to be a new integer array with 4 items in it. Okay, that should do for now. So let's then just here set up our location of correct answer. We can use our random variable again and create next int. This time we want a random variable between 0 and 3, so we can use next int 4. Then we can use a for loop to set up the values within answers. So we'll start with I is equal to 0, keep going as long as I is less than 4. We'll have to set up I as an integer first, of course, and then increment I each time. Then if I is equal to the location of the correct answer, then we want to update answers in that particular answer. So answers I is equal to, and I've just thought, I think I set answers to be a set of integers, yes, which they shouldn't be. They are going to be strings because they need to contain the names. So we want to set it to celeb names and then the correct answer. So we get that from celebnames.get chosen celeb. And then if it's not, then we need to create a random answer. So let's create a kind of holder variable for that. We'll call it incorrect answer location. And then we'll create that here using another random generator. So next int, and then just as before, we're going to use celeb urls.size to get the range of our incorrect answer location. And then we want to set answers I to celeb names.get, and then not chosen celeb this time, but incorrect answer location. Now, if you watch the video with the brain training app, you will probably flag up here that there is, of course, a possibility that we will randomly choose the correct answer here, and we need to stop that from happening. So we'll have a quick while loop. So as long as the incorrect answer location is equal to the correct answer, which is chosen celeb, then we'll choose another random one. So again, that's just quite a neat way of making sure that we don't get the correct answer twice. All right, so now we've got all of those values, so let's update our buttons. So we're going to need some buttons here. We'll have button 0, add the button widget, and then button 1, button 2, and button 3. And then we can just update them all here. So button 0 dot set text, and that's going to be answers 0. And then same for button 1, button 2, and button 3. Answers 1, 2, and 3. And of course, we need to find those buttons. So button 0 is a button, and we'll find it by its ID, r.id.button. And then I'll just copy that to save having to type it lots of times. Button 1, 2, and 3. Do we have an issue with button 1? I called them button 2, 3, and 4. That wasn't very intelligent of me. But actually, it doesn't matter too much. We can leave our code like that. If you're a perfectionist with these things, then you probably want to make those numbers match up, but the code will work just as well. All right then, let's take a look. We should now find that we have a celeb along with the correct answer in a random location and then 3 other answers elsewhere. Now we've got an interesting result here. We've got a guy and we've got 4 names that I'm pretty sure none of which match to that guy. Now I had to look quite hard back to see where this had gone wrong. I wonder if you can anticipate what the error was. It was actually something that I mentioned earlier, and that was that this SRC is going to show some different results that we don't actually want. And the solution to that was to make sure that we've got the image tag included in that. Otherwise, we're going to get some extra unwanted results in the celeb URLs, which are going to cause problems. And they're also going to stop the celeb URLs and the celeb names from matching up, which is what caused that issue there. Right, let's try that again. Okay, here we go. This looks a bit more promising. I again don't know who this person is, but from the image there, we've got 3 guys' names by the looks of it. So I'm going to go for Bai Ling, and there she is. Fantastic. Okay, so either we've been very unlucky there and it's randomly given us correct value, or more hopefully, everything is now working correctly. So let's move on to the button press, which was around here somewhere. Actually, maybe we didn't manage to add that yet. So let's just remind ourselves. OnClick was the celeb chosen. So let's add that method at the top. So public void celeb chosen. And this is going to be called by a view. And this time the specific view does matter, or specifically the tag matters, to know if the user has got it right or not. So again, we can do this in a similar way to our brain training app, and we can check to see if the button that was tapped and the tag of that button converted to a string equals the integer converted to a string location of correct answer. So remember, the tags that we chose for our buttons were 0, 1, 2, and 3, which of course match up with the values of answers and also the location of the correct answer. So that's going to be 0, 1, 2, or 3. So if this is it, that means they got it right. So I'm going to show a quick toast. So make text, and then we use get application context for the context. And I'll just put correct for the actual content, and then toast dot length long, and then show. And if it's not, then I think we'll tell them who it was. So very similar, but wrong. It was, and then we'll give the correct answer, which will be celeb names chosen. Whoops, it's an array list, not an array. Dot get chosen celeb. There we go. So I'm just going to check that that works. And once that works, that's the penultimate thing to do. And all we've got left is to make it so that a new question pops up as soon as the previous question ends. So as we saw at the beginning, I'm not going to create a kind of running total or anything like that. We're just going to run through it, but you could do that very easily using what we did in the Brain Trainer app if you want to. Here we go. I think I might actually know that one as Howard Stern. Correct. Fantastic. Now, as it happens, I can actually check the other ones as well because we're not going on to the correct one. So wrong, it was Howard Stern. Brilliant. So everything seems to be fine. So all we need to do is to make it so that instead of just creating a new question the first time round, it creates one every time. So all we need to do is take our code out of onCreate and put it into a separate method and then call it twice. So we don't need to obviously download all the content again because we've already got that. Remember though that that was part of a try and catch. So we're going to need to leave that for the previous code. And then here we'll create public void, create new question. And we don't need to pass anything there. So we can put our code in there, which should be fine, but we will need a try and catch. And I'm actually going to make that just a general exception. Just to keep things simple, and I'm going to put everything else in the try code as well, just in case we get any further problems. Okay, and then all we need to do is create a new question in onCreate, and when the user has answered a question as well, whether they got it right or wrong, they still get a new question. Okay, and with any luck, the app should now be pretty much complete. So here we go. I've got a feeling that might be Mylene class. Nope, it wasn't. Okay, this chap then, got to be Ryan Reynolds. Got it. Fantastic. Lara Stone. Nope. Suki Waterhouse. Now I know that's not Brad Pitt. Let's go for Lisa Snowdon. It wasn't. Okay, but either way, you know that I'm very bad with celebrities, but we now have a completely working Guess the Celebrity app, which you could actually extend to almost any kind of guessing game where you get the content and then give the user a random selection of incorrect answers, along with, of course, the correct answer. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I'm now going to move on as promised and show you how to work with JSON APIs so that you're not relying on the website creator's website not changing, which is obviously not a great thing to rely on for any production app. See you in the next video.